Hey guys, my name is Chantel. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for hanging out with me today. So today we're going to talk about Idolish7 Third B episode 11. And let's just get right into it because this episode had like a really nice vibe the first half, and then the second half we went straight to the drama, man. We just dropped right in. So let's just get to it. So we basically start this episode with Iori assigning each of the groups something to do. So Idolish7 is in charge of the costumes, Trigger is in charge of the choreography, and Rivale is going to do, writing the song. And they pretty much just get right into business. And as Yuki is working on the song, he's like happy with it. Everything looks good. But then Riku comes in and he starts making so many suggestions just to fit around like their t-shirts. And Yuki is not having it. He's like, you cannot be serious right now. Which honestly I thought was so funny. Like Riku's just suggesting things and he's also telling Yuki, he's like, well, it's kind of hard to think about love, and Yuki's like, don't you think I'm struggling with that too? And it was just so funny, you guys, just seeing their interaction. But I also do like at the beginning of this episode, they were trying to give like some ideas to Yuki, topics, what love means to everybody. And they finally come to a understanding of let's just give back to our fans. Let's do this theme around love for the support that they've given us and just how you have people around you who support you and love you and things like that. So that's kind of what gets the ball rolling for Yuki because he was struggling a little bit to have like an idea and like get things going for him to write the song. And what I do like is that as everything is happening and Yuki is like writing the song, you can see like Sogo in the distance looking at Yuki, which at first I didn't catch it, but the second time that I watched the episode I caught it and I was like, oh, so he's been watching Yuki from a distance for a while. And you can tell like he's curious and interested, and later on in the episode we get to see them talk more about that. So I'll save my thoughts for that, which actually no, let's go ahead and talk about that right now since we're on the topic anyway. So Sogo and Yuki, they end up talking about making music. So Sogo goes in and he asks Yuki if it's okay if he can watch him, do his thing. And Yuki's like, oh yeah, sure, because he realizes that, Sogo's uncle used to do music, right? And I really, really enjoyed their little conversation. And Yuki is just basically encouraging Sogo to start composing songs. And he says, you guys are probably running low on Haruki's songs. Like, they're not going to be there forever. And that's something that I have been constantly thinking about for a while, is that what were they going to do once they run out of Haruki songs? So it was kind of nice to see that addressed in this episode. And it looks like Sogo is going to be the one taking over that and composing music. And with that, of course, he is a little bit afraid and he's very much unsure. He doesn't really have the confidence. And I really love that Yuki does give him like some advice, some words to that way he can be confident in what he's gonna do, right? And he basically just says, being passionate and working hard is a talent. And once you become passionate in something, you just get so involved and you can't help but like be immersed in this world. And honestly, that's just how it is with creating. Sometimes it's exhausting, sometimes it doesn't go your way, but it's also really fun and you just love it. It's the same feeling that I have while I'm making YouTube videos and TikTok videos. There's days where I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do this anymore, but then there's also days where I get like inspiration or just like this bolt of energy where I'm like instantly loving this and I love it, especially with my Idolish7 videos. I get so excited to edit them, you guys have no idea, and try to get them out as quickly as I can for you guys, even though I've been a little slow lately and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, like when you really get into something that you really love, you can't help but be captivated by it, is I guess is the best way that I can describe that. And I also love that Yuki does tell Sogo, you're gonna see sights that you've never seen when you're composing music, and no one's gonna be able to take that experience from you. And I do like that Sogo was like, do you think it's gonna go well? And Yuki like straight up was like, I don't think so, but this is your own experience. You do you, and you're gonna learn and grow from these experiences and you're gonna love it, and that's all that matters. Which by the end of it, you can can see that Sogo seems more like light, basically. He seems like there's like this weight lifted off his shoulders, and he seems a little bit more confident, and he seems like really excited to do this, especially because Yuki also mentions how Sogo really loves music. And I think the reason why Sogo is probably like, not confident is just everything that happened with his family, obviously, and his uncle. I'm sure it's probably a little bit like traumatizing, and maybe he's just like unsure. Maybe he's thinking, is this the right path? Should I even be doing this? But I'm glad that Yuki gave him like the reassurance he needed, and I'm really excited to see what Sogo is going to do in the future, and I'm really excited if he is going to compose music. I wonder what that's going to sound like. It's going to be really, really fun. But anywho, you guys, moving on to the next topic that I do want to talk about is the conversation between Tamaki and Mitsuki. So this, I'm not gonna lie, it made me tear up so much, just how sincere and sweet Tamaki was, and just the look on Mitsuki's face, like, oh my gosh, just even thinking about it right now makes me want to tear up again. It was just the sweetest thing ever. And Tamaki was basically talking to Mitsuki about how someone said that he didn't like him anymore because he's a goody two-shoes now. He's not the same as he was before. And this is what got Tamaki realizing that Mitsuki works really hard, and like just the things that he always goes through, and he realizes it's not an easy job. And you can tell like Mitsuki is really, really touched by what Tamaki is saying, and it's just, oh my gosh, just the look on Mitsuki's face is just so, I can't. Like, it was just really, really sweet. Like, just like, I can't, man. I'm trying hard not to cry just thinking about that conversation. But it's just, Tamaki is so sweet and so innocent. He has like that childlike manner, and I think that's what is one of his best qualities, is just how honest and straightforward he is. Sometimes it might come out a little bit wrong or a little too strong, but he's coming from a good place. And I just love how Mitsuki does tell Tamaki that he's grown a lot. He's no longer the selfish person that he once was. He's completely different. And Tamaki does say that he wonders if he could be someone like Mitsuki. And I love that Mitsuki was like, yeah, you can. Like, I believe in you. And I'm like, y'all are so cute. And I just love that he gives him like a head pat and like compliments and stuff like that. And you can, like, Tamaki's little blushy face, like, he's just so precious. He must be protected. And that's something that Mitsuki also says. He's like, you must be protected. If I could just cover your ears from all the bad words, bad things that people are saying, like, I would. And I'm like, my heart. But yeah, so that's it with the training camp. And I do like that we just go straight into one of the things that I have been thinking about pretty often, especially last week. I was like, wait a minute, why we haven't gotten back to Haruka and his appearance with 10, like back in episode 1, I believe, or who knows, it was like in the earlier episodes, right? And I was wondering if we were ever gonna get back to that, and sure enough, we briefly get back to that in this week's episode. And I say briefly just because I'm wondering if 10 said something to Haruka, or if they had like a conversation, because we don't really get to see what happens next after Haruka says all the things that he did to 10. So I'm still wondering if we're gonna dive into that. I'm pretty sure we are eventually, but we do touch upon that briefly, like I said. And 10 basically asks Kujo, like, hey, like, there was this kid outside our house and he seemed to know you, like, who was that? And immediately Kujo knew who he was talking about. He's like, oh, you're talking about Haruka. And he basically tells 10 that he is a failed project, and that he basically trained him around the same time that he was training 10, but he used a different method. And you can immediately tell that 10 had absolutely like no idea that this was happening. And I'm sure, especially because after Kujo like leaves the room, he looks concerned and a little bit worried. So I'm just kind of wondering like what's going through 10's mind, like I want to know, because he does seem pretty worried, and I wonder if he's maybe worried about Haruka and just how he is. So yeah, just the way that Kujo brushes off Haruka like he's nothing is honestly really sad, because you can tell instantly that there's something going on with Haruka. I'm pretty sure he's probably hurt. Again, I don't know like his whole story. I do know some bits and pieces here and there, but not like the full story. Does that make sense? So I don't know. What can I say about Haruka, man? Like, we haven't really seen him, so it's kind of hard for me to give you guys like my 2 cents, because we really haven't dived into him that much. And I honestly cannot wait to see like his backstory and everything, and get to know him and see how he's felt, especially being under Kujo. I want to see like what his experience with Kujo was. But you can definitely tell like he definitely has some anger there, and just he obviously doesn't like Ten or Trigger, which is why I think he's like hurt, and you know, he probably has some trauma thanks to Kujo. Again, who knows? I guess we'll see what happens. But anyway, since we're on the topic of Haruka, let's go ahead and talk about our Zool members. So we get to see all of them together with Ryo-san, and already I'm like not liking this vibe. So it looks like they get together to celebrate Ryo-san and him taking over, right? And it looks like people are already like trying to butter him up and try to be on his good side and stuff like that. And immediately Ryo-san gets to business, and he asks like, all right, let's see, who do we sacrifice? It has to be someone that's gonna make a really big impact. And he automatically just is like, no, we can't do Idolish7 because they're new, so the only obvious choice is Rivale or Trigger. And I'm like, oh my god, like this is not going good. Especially because thinking back to the first episode, I'm like, oh no, here we go. Instantly I knew that this was probably gonna be one of the first beginning steps to how Trigger ended up the way that they did in the very beginning of the first episode. So the only feeling I have is everything is just gonna snowball from here on out, isn't it? And I'm scared, man. I'm scared to see the drama, but also I'm very much excited to see the drama. But anyway, so the boys actually take a vote on who they want to see get taken down first, and ultimately they end up choosing Trigger. And you guys, just the way that Ryo acted after that, like, it scared me. Like, I actually flinched when he just put the knife in the turkey. Like, I was just like, uh-oh, like, just not good vibes overall, you know? And sure enough, we already go into Yatome Productions, and we see Anasanagi mentioning how Trigger hasn't been getting a lot of jobs lately, and she's noticing that. And Yatome basically brushes it aside, and he's like, oh, it's because of Last Dimension. They've been, you know, doing shows and blah blah. And when Yatome says this, like at first I was like, oh okay, but you know, thinking about it now, I'm like, wait a minute. You know, because like, just because with Ryo-san he obviously has a plan, and I'm sure like something in my gut tells me that he is probably behind that, with Trigger not getting a lot of jobs, just to, you know, get Yatome to hand them over. And sure enough, Ryo-san actually does go in and meet with Yatome, and he just gets straight to the point. He's like, I want you to sell me Trigger. I want them, and I want people to fear me. And Yatome instantly, he does not want to budge. He's like, no, like Trigger is mine. You cannot take them. And he basically loses it. Like, he is so angry, and he ends up obviously kicking out Ryo-san. As Ryo-san is walking out, Yatome had to say, like, he had to mention Momo, man, because he ends up saying how he heard from Momo that, you know, Ryo-san isn't a good guy, and he tries to warn Ryo-san, like, hey, like, it would be really bad if you got yourself caught in some scandals or in something like that, you know? And instantly Ryo-san is like, oh, so you're one of his little friends, you're part of his little athletic club. And that like just catches him off guard. He's like, what are you talking about? So after Ryo-san leaves, Yatome brings Momo over, and of course Yuki tags along. So Yatome ends up talking to Momo and discussing what just happened basically with Ryo-san. And he also asks him like, hey, like, what's this athletic club that Ryo-san is talking about? Do you know what that means? And Momo and Yuki basically explained like, oh, like it's a little club that Momo started just with a few people just to get together and have fun. Instantly, Yatome knew exactly why Ryo-san was so buddy-buddy with Momo, or at least tried to get Momo on his side, or like try to get info on Momo, why he always stuck around with Momo. It was because he thinks that Momo's club is a modern day Chiba salon. And when Yatome mentions that, you can just see the shock on Yuki and Momo's faces. And Yatome basically explains what Chiba salon really was and how it was just basically a group of people who were there to fight against powerful people in the industry. And Momo instantly was like, okay, but that's not what I'm doing here. That's not what my little group is. It's just like an innocent little get together. Which Momo then ends up saying, you know, like if this is true and that's what Ryo-san is thinking, then you need to be careful with Ryu because he is basically the organizer. And Yatome basically is like, what did you do? Like that is not good. And as soon as they mentioned Ryu, that's when it clicked for me. Just how much in danger Ryu was, and why Toral mentioned the Chiba salon to Ryo-san like on the phone, and how he said, you know, a couple episodes ago, he's like, I don't think he's like in the Chiba salon and stuff like that. Which back then it didn't make sense. I was like, why does he think that he's a part of the Chiba salon? But now that Yatome explained it in this episode, it makes so much sense now. And I'm like, oh my god, like Ryu is in such big doo-doo right now and he doesn't even realize it. And that just scared me because I'm like, they're gonna take advantage of him and he's not gonna realize it. Like, oh my gosh. And I said that in my video back then, how Ryu is very sweet and nice. He's very trusting of people, and I knew someone was gonna take advantage of his trust. I knew it, you guys. I was so mad when I saw like the ending of this episode, but after that, Momo does have some advice for Yatome, and he tells him he needs to be careful and not let his selfishness get in the way because it's gonna come back to bite him in the butt. And Yatome being Yatome, he's like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna listen to you guys. I'm just gonna fight back. There's no way he's gonna win against me. He's just like nothing. He's just a little brat. And I'm like, you're gonna eat your words soon enough, dude, and you're gonna regret not listening to Momo. And that's just Yatome's ego talking that got in the way. He really thought he was gonna be untouchable. He really thought that he was gonna make it out without any scratches and stuff, but clearly the damage has been done. And speaking of damage, let's talk about the last bit of this week's episode, which is between Ryu, Sumire, and Nagi. So Ryu ends up meeting up with Sumire, and when he meets up with her, Nagi actually overhears their conversation because Nagi just happened to be there at the right place at the right time. And when Ryu is talking to Sumire, she is like breaking down and saying how she feels like a robot and she doesn't like how she's been working lately, how if she goes with another company, like they're gonna make sure that she never sings again and she wants to go back home. And you can see like Ryu just wants to help the poor girl out. And here's the thing, when I was watching this and he's listening to Sumire talk, I noticed that someone's phone like went off and it said manager, but I thought like at first it was Sumire, and at first I honestly thought it was Sumire's phone, but when I looked at the episode a second time, I realized it was Ryu's phone and it was Nasanagi pretty much calling him. And I'm like, oh, like you're telling me if maybe he picked up the phone, he would have been a little bit more cautious? Like just maybe? Who knows? But I don't know. But then again, like I said, Ryu is very trusting and he's just very caring and very sweet and kind. I'm sure he still would have tried to help Sumire and hear her out, which it sucks because he landed right in their trap. Because this poor boy was willing to go with Sumire and like help her out and negotiate with her company so she can keep her job and like just figure some things out. And that's actually when Nagi like butts in and he's like, no, like let me help you out. I can do this, you know, let me help. And as they like leave the little restaurant cafe place, you can tell that Sumire is freaking out. She's like, wait, are you actually coming with me? And Ryu's like, oh yeah, that's right, you did so good at the conference, like you're so lucky, Sumire. And she's like panicking. She's like, no, it has to be Ryu, it needs to be him. And she ends up calling her manager and pushes basically the phone to Ryu, and this poor boy, like, he couldn't even talk like 2 things in, and already they were like, nope, you can have her, she's your responsibility now. And it was just really weird because she's like, oh my god, thank you, like, thank you so much for helping me. And I'm like, oh my god, like, she acted really weird, and instantly both Nagi and Ryu noticed how weird that was. And I'm not gonna lie, at first, you know, I was like, it can't be that bad, right? Like, maybe she's just doing something, like, I don't know why I didn't think that she was gonna do something bad. Like, I knew something was up with her, right? But I didn't think she was gonna go that bad. And I'll talk about that later in a little bit because I have a lot to say about this girl. So let's just get the one thing out of the way before I talk into Sumire, which is Nagi and this mystery guy. So this mystery dude appears and he tells Nagi like he can't run away anymore, he's got to take him to his dorm now. And Ryu asks like, hey, is that an acquaintance of yours? He's like, yeah, he's an acquaintance, but he's an annoying acquaintance. And I'm like, okay, what's up with that? Because Nagi just looks super serious about this. It almost sounds like he's been trying really hard to avoid this person. And instantly I thought about when Nagi mentioned a few episodes ago how he had a stalker, and probably the reason why he got all the security cameras was probably to avoid this person. As to the reason why, I don't know. I actually was really surprised to see this person and really shocked. But the only conclusion that I came to was like, okay, he's probably from the same country that Nagi is from, and there's a connection there obviously, but I don't know what that connection is. So I honestly was like left all confused, and I'm like, okay, but this doesn't look good because the way that Nagi looks at him just tells me that I should probably be a little bit worried for what's to come. Not now, but you know, later. Especially because all of you guys that left comments in the finale episode did tell me like the next, not this season, like season 3, but the 4th season of Idolish7 will be focusing on Nagi. So I'm assuming this has to do with that and is probably gonna build up to what's gonna come later on. And actually, speaking of Nagi, since I'm thinking about him right now, so while they were at the training camp, Yamato does end up talking to Nagi, and I do love that he says, you know, I'm not the best person to say this, but I think you should tell everyone whatever secrets you have going on and you'll feel better, because I felt really relieved and better. And this is something that's been going on between obviously Nagi and Yamato for a while. I've been seeing it throughout season 1 and up until now, how anytime Nagi or Yamato say something about like their secret that they were keeping, they would always like deflect, and they would always just keep it at that. Like they wouldn't push anymore because, you know, they had secrets of their own, and you know, they weren't ready to say anything, and they have good reason why they didn't want to say anything, right? But now that Yamato's like on the other side, he is like, you know, you should really start talking to us and you'll probably feel better. It's not good like having secrets. And it's just like Yamato said, like he really isn't the best person, but at the same time he's also the best person to say that, because he's been on that side that Nagi is in, but he's also like at the end of the tunnel, if that makes sense. He's at the end of it and he feels relieved and he's a lot better now. Obviously Nagi isn't gonna say anything just yet, and he deflects too, and Yamato obviously, like, you know, they don't talk about it after that. Again, this is probably building up for what's coming up next with Nagi, and honestly that's all I can really say about that. So yeah, let's just move on right back into Sumire because I have a lot to say and I just want to go off, man. I need to go off. So Sumire, this freaking little girl, really caught our boy Ryu in a scandal. And I know she did this on purpose because obviously of the way that she was acting. But here's my question, is that did she do this because she was forced to, or did she do this like on purpose on her own free will too? Because right now, anything this girl says at this point, like going forward, I cannot forgive her for what she did. Like this poor boy Ryu, like she took advantage of his kindness and his trust, and I don't think I can forgive this girl. Like that is just messed up. She set him up and she knew what she was doing, and I hate that so much. Like it made me so mad because when you see the headlines for poor Ryu, like oh my god, like everything he has been building up for, his personality, everything he had to sacrifice just disappeared thanks to this freaking girl. And it makes me so mad because now she just basically ruined his image. And oh my gosh, like it just makes me so mad. And especially because we all know how sweet Ryu is, and it's just, that's what makes this so much worse and just makes me like angry. Like, how can you not feel bad for doing that? How can you do all this to this poor boy? I'm fine. This girl, like, I swear to God, if she doesn't feel any guilt after this, I'm gonna be so mad. But at the same time, I'm still gonna be mad regardless. And you can tell, like, in next week's episode, like the preview, like you can tell like he feels bad, and it looks like he probably is thinking, I probably should have been more careful. And it's like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, I'm like, he better not feel guilty or blame himself, because he honestly couldn't have seen this coming. He is just a sweet person inside and out. Like, he is always gonna be willing to help people, but now it's like he's gonna have to double think now with trusting people thanks to this freaking girl. I'm sorry. I'm like losing it. Like, I can't even form like sentences at this point. So I think I'm just gonna end it here. Oh man, oh man, like what was that, man? Like the drama we got, like they really dropped us in a pot of doo-doo, like straight into like some really, really messy drama, man. But I'm here for it, man. I'm excited to see like what's gonna happen in the next episode. But at the same time, I'm like, what the hell? Like, y'all are really doing this now when we're gonna have to wait for the next core like for a little bit longer? Like, but I know it's gonna be worth it. I know it, because the Idolish7 staff does such an amazing job with these past seasons, and this season has just been so good. So I'm excited to see like what we're gonna get next. But yeah, so as I was saying, that is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!